Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Juan. I am just one reader. My last video was a rant on the worst movies that I watched in 2017. So now I wanted to make the opposite of that. But the thing is, I don't feel comfortable telling you guys what are my favorite movies of the year so far, because there are some movies that are officially 2017 movies but that haven't been released here in Mexico yet. So for example, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, I, Tanya, these are movies that haven't been released yet. I haven't been able to watch them, so I am not doing that list right now. Instead of that, I will be sharing with you guys 10 of my favorite movies of all time, and these are very different. This is a very assorted, diverse compilation, but I love them equally, and they all mean a lot to me for very different reasons. So if you will indulge me, I'm just gonna talk about 10 movies that I own here in my personal library for movies that I absolutely adore and 100% would recommend. So the first two are Woody Allen movies, and these are my favorite Woody Allen movies that I've seen so far. I haven't watched all of them because he is, well, incredibly prolific. I always say that my favorite movie of all time is Manhattan, which, I mean, just the titles alone, when they play this amazing swelling music, Rhapsody in Blue, you know, and the way that he shows the city of Manhattan is absolutely incredible. Manhattan is my favorite place ever in the world, and the story also is incredibly fascinating, and I love how he treats human relationships. And then the other one that I chose is Annie Hall, which is another one of his masterpieces. I absolutely adore this movie, maybe just a little bit less than Manhattan. Now, for something completely different, this is a children's movie, and this is actually, I think, the only children's movie that I selected for this compilation, for this list. This is a Walt Disney classic, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. This is just pure magic. I remember watching this when I was a kid, and I watched it over and over and over again, and it's one of those Disney classics that are not talked enough about. This is just, it's movie magic. I absolutely adore it. It's animation, it's very magical, it's very fantastical. I feel like this is the type of story and the type of movie that would appeal to readers. So if you are, even if you are 95 years old and you haven't watched this movie, please listen to me and watch this. It's a classic for a reason. Next up, I have two operas. If you have been following my channel, you probably already know that I am a huge opera buff, and these are my two favorite operas that I own in like filmed versions of them. This is Carmen or Carmen, any way you want to pronounce it. I always call it Carmen because the opera is in French. So this is by Georges Bizet, and this is the wonderful version from the Metropolitan Opera featuring Elena Garancha as Carmen and Roberto Alagna as Don José, and Escamillo is Teddy Tara Rhodes. This is just one of the most spectacular, just one of the biggest spectacles that I've seen on stage, and you know, I feel like Carmen is the perfect opera to watch. This version in particular, if you want to get into opera, or if you've never seen an opera and you would like to maybe try one, Carmen is just fabulous. The music is riveting from start to finish. It's absolutely bombastic and spectacular and lush and exciting, and it's so suspenseful and thrilling. The story is so compelling. I also really like the opera, because it features very great roles for all the voices. So it has a great mezzo-soprano role, which is of course Carmen, Don José, which is the big tenor role. Of course, Escamillo is one of the biggest baritone roles ever. And we also have a soprano, which is maybe not as prominent, but still great arias, great music, and yeah, just altogether an amazing spectacle. And the other one is La Traviata. This is by Giuseppe Verdi, and this is a particular version of La Traviata that I really like. This one is was, I don't know where it took place. I think it was somewhere in Europe. And this is the Netrebko and Villazon version, also with Thomas Hampson as the baritone. La Traviata is just another really great opera to watch as your first opera. It's incredibly exciting. It's very, 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 very short. It's never boring. The melodies will stay with you forever. Just an amazing, amazing production. Now, for something different, this is actually a Mexican film, and it probably is my favorite Mexican film. This was directed by Alfonso Cuaron, who is, of course, one of our most distinguished and celebrated directors, who also did Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. But this movie, Y tu mamá tambien, just has a very special place. I honestly don't know what the title is in English. I'm sorry, I didn't bother to look it up, but it's pretty much. I'm figuring it must be pretty much the literal translation of the title. So it's probably like your mother as well, or something like that. I don't know. This stars Diego Luna, Gael Garcia Bernal, and Maribel Verdú. This is just an amazing, amazing story. It's very raw and very real. It's basically this kind of, how to describe it? It's just an amazing story. It's about these two teenage boys that you can see in the cover, and they have this friendship, and we follow their friendship. They get entangled with this lady right here, and they go on a road trip, and it's the perfect movie in terms of tone. I really like movies like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which have a very balanced tone between drama and comedy. And this is just another great one. So if you've never watched this, well, here is a Mexican recommendation from an actual Mexican guy. Next up is a documentary, and if I'm honest, this is probably like my favorite movie of all time alongside Manhattan. This is The Audition, and this is, okay, so this is kind of a weird choice, right? This is a documentary that follows the auditions. What's the name? The Metropolitan Opera's National Council auditions. Basically, even though this is a documentary, and it's a documentary on the world of opera in New York City, which might sound boring for some people, this pretty much watches or feels as a reality show. We follow the contestants and the people that are auditioning for this huge, huge, huge prize, which is, winning the Met Opera's National Council Awards, which, the Metropolitan Opera is, if not the greatest, one of the greatest opera houses in the world. So this is a big deal. The stakes are so high, the pressure is so intense, and you get to follow the audition process, the coaching process. We see this very young people, very young contestants, just fight for their life, and it's amazing. They play and sing the most beautiful music ever written, and it's incredibly, incredibly exciting and fun. And yeah, this is probably my favorite movie alongside Manhattan. I've watched this DVD like 100,000 bazillion gazillion times. Next up, I have Pan's Labyrinth. This was directed by Guillermo del Toro, who is nominated right now for The Shape of Water and will most probably win Best Direction for The Shape of Water. And yes, The Shape of Water is a really good movie. I really liked it. I am very glad that it has received all the accolades and all the nominations for the Oscars. However, this has to be my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie ever. Pan's Labyrinth, the original title is El Laberinto del Fauno. This is just everything that I could ever possibly want in a film. This is dramatic, it's intense, it's horrifying, like it's terrifying. It's also really sweet, it's thrilling, it's intense. I think I already said intense like 3 times. It is infused with mythology and fairy tale, and it's kind of ambiguous and open. It's just such a delight, and it's also very, very, very uh, difficult to stomach. But oh my god, Pan's Labyrinth is one of the best movies that I've ever seen. And finally, I have two musicals or Broadway shows, kind of. The first one is Les Miserables, Les Miserables. But this is actually the 25th anniversary in concert. This was filmed in London at the O2 Arena, and I love this version. This is honestly my favorite version of Les Mis. I've seen Les Mis on Broadway. I've seen it in London. I'm gonna see it now in Mexico. And I love the stage productions. They also made a movie adaptation of Les Mis with Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway, which I believe is one of the worst movies that I've ever seen and one of the most disappointing adaptations ever. So if you like Les Mis, if you enjoy the music or the story or whatever, this is the way, this is the one to watch. This is the way to go if you ask me. The 25th anniversary concert, absolutely perfect. It has the best singer for the role of Jean Valjean, which is Alfie Boe. He is an opera singer. And yeah, everyone in here is amazing. It even has Nick Jonas as Marius, and he's pretty good. And overall, this is just a spectacle, just an absolute spectacle. I've watched it so many times, and the music is incredibly lush in that production. And the last one is Rent. So I love Rent. It's another musical that I've watched on Broadway, in Mexico City. I've watched it on stage. There's another movie adaptation of Rent, which is pretty decent. But this is the last performance on Broadway. And this is just absolutely amazing. I mean, to watch this particular performance of this particular show in this particular stage, which is the on Broadway, the live experience, it's just incredible. It has the most wonderful cast. If you ask me, it's one of the best musicals out there. I just love Rent. It has such a great meaning, and it's such an important thing in my life. It always has been, and yeah, this is just a very emotional experience. And the songs are great. Everything is great. This won the Pulitzer for a reason. Rent is life. So yeah, no day but today. So anyway, those are 10 of my favorite movies that I physically own. Please stay tuned because later on, at probably the end of February, I will be posting my video on my favorite films that I watched in 2017. So thank you very much for watching. I am just one reader.